Video games Recon.
Hello and welcome to the first episode in this new series of Top 5, Top 10s and Top 20s, all based on video games both old and new. In this first of two episodes we will be looking at the Top 20 Sega Mega Drive games, otherwise known as the Sega Genesis for those of you in the United States. First off, I would just like to say that the order of this list was so tricky to choose that I decided to make this a top 20 list instead of a top 10, and that I will only be featuring my favourite single game from each franchise instead of doubling up and featuring multiple games from the same franchise that are very similar. And on top of that, I would just like to put the disclaimer out there that this video is completely opinion based and is more a matter of personal preference than anything else. And as such, there is no such thing as a definitive top 20 list. So, instead of going nuts and raging in the comments about how you disagree with the order or that your favourite game isn't in this list, why not join in the conversation and post what your top 10 or top 20 Sega Genesis / Mega Drive games would be. And as I touched on earlier, this list wasn't easy to decide on. So, here are a few games for consideration that just missed out on the top 20. NBA Jam, Zombies Ate My Neighbours, Skitchin', X-Men 2, Two Crude Dudes, Double Dragon 2, and last but not least, Echo the Dolphin. Anywho, with that nonsense out of the way and without any further ado, let's do it to it. 20. Another World. Another World, also known as Out of This World in the US, was originally released in 1991 on the Amiga and Atari ST, before some bright spark had the good sense to port it the following year onto the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis platforms. This cult classic game was damn near revolutionary for its time in terms of gameplay mechanics, as it's kinda hard to think of any games touted as cinematic platformer come action adventure game ever, let alone to be able to think of anything that comes even remotely close to that in the early 90s. This game is also regarded as a pioneer graphically, even though it might not look like it by today's standards, as this game was a massive leap forward in terms of style, graphics and cinematics. And if that wasn't praise enough, it's cited as one of the 5 games of all time that has influenced Hideo Kojima, the creator of the Metal Gear series. Enough said. Comix Zone. Comix Zone has a very unique take on the beat-em-up and platformer genres, as our protagonist, Sketch, is trapped within the confines of his own comic book, and in order to escape and save the day, he must defeat a mutant that has escaped from his comic book and is hell-bent on killing him by drawing enemies into the comic book to attack Sketch, so that our bad guy can assume a flesh and blood body with which he intends to take over the world. So, as you can see, Comix Zone has a very unique storyline, which in turn creates an even more unique and creative gameplay mechanic. Although this game was well received and gained some critical acclaim for its graphical style, gameplay and great soundtrack, it was thought of being let down by its difficulty, short game length, and most importantly by being released after the launch of the Sega Saturn, meaning it received little press and thus few people knew of its existence, until later, receiving cult status due to its unique style and gameplay. 18. Castlevania Bloodlines. Castlevania Bloodlines, known simply as Vampire Killer in Japan and as Castlevania New Generation in Europe and Australia, which was renamed as such and heavily censored by the European PAL region rating agencies, due to what they classified as a considerable amount of violence and gore. Or to simply put it, we in Europe got screwed over yet again. Anyway, Castlevania Bloodlines is the only game in the franchise to get a Mega Drive release, and is widely regarded as one of the most graphically unique games in this franchise, due in no small part to the odd gameplay mechanic of being able to play upside down or have the screen divide into sections on certain stages, which only added to the challenge of one of the most difficult Castlevania games in the series. 17. Kid Chameleon. Kid Chameleon is one of those cool games that I unfortunately didn't get the pleasure to play much in my youth, and is one of those games that I enviously coveted within my friends' game collections. I mean, what's not to love? With gameplay similar to Mario, an uber cool character like a young Fonzie, and the ability to transform into all sorts of cool things, from a samurai to a knight, and even into classic horror movie bad guy Jason Voorhees, and all in between. 16. Vectorman. Vectorman is one of the most beautiful looking games on the Genesis, due to the use of pre-rendered 3D graphics, giving the appearance of visuals beyond that of the ability of the hardware currently available, and was seen as Sega's answer to Donkey Kong Country, which also used pre-rendered 3D graphics. As for the gameplay, it's a solid and fun run-and-gun platformer, akin to that of a Mega Man game, except faster paced, better looking, and dare I say it, more enjoyable. 15. Gunstar Heroes. Gunstar Heroes is your typical side-scrolling shoot-'em-up, created to rival Nintendo's Contra. This video game is colourful with great graphics and even better gameplay. Even though this game was met with a positive reception at release, unfortunately, history tends to place this game in the shadow of titles like Contra and the Metal Slug series. However, those who got to play this game, and fellow Sega nerds out there, know that this game is not to be underestimated. With its fast pace, balanced difficulty, good graphics, and the ability to combine your 4 standard weapons into an additional 10 weapons, a co-op mode, and its out and out good old fashioned shoot 'em up madness. These things probably make this the best run and gun game on the Mega Drive. 14. Strider. Originally created for arcade systems in 1989, Strider was later ported to a number of platforms, including the Sega Genesis a year later. This game was one of Capcom's earliest successes, predating Street Fighter II by nearly 2 years, and featured a hella cool high-tech ninja with a plasma sword and a bunch of weaponized robot helpers. And with a setup like that, you just know you're going to be onto a winner. As for the story, Strider is set in a dystopian future within a fictional Soviet state dominated by a mysterious dictator. Our protagonist hero must use all his future ninja skills to kick ass and save the day in this very difficult and original hack and slash platformer. 13. Aladdin. This one is quite a surprise, and if not a first, then at least an extreme rarity, by actually being a good and well-made Disney film to video game adaptation. As let's face it, most movie to video game ports are generic and made as the lowest common denominator, designed just to cash in on the intellectual property in question. However, Aladdin, made in 1993 by Virgin Interactive, seemed to be made by a production company that actually gave a crap about the game they were making, which was just as rare then as it is now. This platformer game featured awesome graphics with a traditional animation style, nice music that is in keeping with the film's great soundtrack, and has an intuitive control system, all of which helps to make this game a fun experience and is about as close as you're gonna get to actually playing a Disney cartoon on a Mega Drive. 12. Altered Beast. Altered Beast was originally an arcade game which got ported to the Sega Genesis in 1988 and was released as a bundle package with the console prior to that of Sonic the Hedgehog. This game, although a fairly simple side-scrolling beat-em-up, for the time Altered Beast showed the potential of games consoles by bringing the arcade machine into the home. And like I said, although not revolutionary and quite short, I had hours of fun playing this game over and over in my youth, even if one of your main attacks was to shin kick like a big girl's blouse. 11. Gauntlet IV. Ah, Gauntlet. Now this game really does bring back some fond memories of me and my siblings losing track of time and playing this game for hours and hours, getting lost in the mazes and mostly arguing about who's been stealing all the loot and shooting the potions like a numpty. Originally released on arcade machines and ported to various consoles and systems of the day, this hack and slash dungeon crawler is colourful and addictive and is best enjoyed playing co-op, which was also one of the first games to feature 4-player co-op, and is one of the reasons for the 4-way adapter becoming popular on the system, which got released a month later. The only reason I haven't placed this game higher up on this list is due to the fact that I played this game extensively on both the Mega Drive and the Atari ST, and although there's not much in it, I found the Atari port to be superior. So that concludes part 1 of my top 20 Sega Genesis games. If you enjoyed this video, stay tuned for part 2 and my top 10 Genesis games, which should be released in the following week or 2. Either way, there will be an annotation and/or link on the screen now, informing you should you wish to check out part 2. As usual, please like, comment and subscribe for more BS of a similar nature. Thank you and goodbye.